Okay, today we're going to show you how to install the LGT-399, which works with your RXV standard light kit. Now, the front is going to have your two wiring harnesses along with the actual switch. Your rear will be two red plugs for the wiring harness. What I suggest doing, obviously, is just laying out the cables to where they're supposed to go and starting off at the battery. Red is going to be your 12 volt, white is going to be your ground. You do not want to connect them, but you actually want to have them in place so you have enough wire to go to both the rear and the front of the cart. What I also would like to do and suggest is taking the split loom, the wiring harness, and just simply zip tying it to the factory split loom that's there already. That way there's no movement and you have plenty of slack to work with. The shorter cable will stay on your driver's side, go into the inside of the bar. Once you have it there, you want to go ahead and clip it into the factory notch that's on the wheel well to keep it in place. Now you want about 6 to 8 inches of slack towards the back of it. When running the harness to the passenger side of the rear, I again would suggest taking a zip tie, and there's 2 holes in the actual frame of the cart. You can use those holes to hold it in place. Now it's very important that you don't tie this down all the way, just so you have a little bit of slack to work with as you're moving about the cart. As such, just to keep it in place so you have enough to work with. And just as in on the passenger side, you run it behind the bar, you clip it into your notch with about 6 to 8 inches of slack on the back. Once we have the rear harnesses in place, obviously your zip ties are still going to be loose. You then want to run the front of the harness to the front of the cart. Now, like I said, the front's going to have the white plugs, and then you have the switch. Take the switch off. This will make it a lot easier for you to run it towards the front. And when you run it, you want to run it one at a time. And you're going to run it right along where the factory wiring harness is already located, already ran. You want to be careful, you don't want to force it or pull the wires out, but just kind of finagle it in there, and one by one they'll go through and lay flat into the little channel that's there for the wires. Once you have them through, pull all the slack you have. Again, that's one of the reasons why we should tie it at the battery point. That way you know that you can pull it all the way through. Now as you're feeding it through the little channel, you make sure everything is snug and out of the way, because there's a floor plate that goes right back on top. Now another suggestion is taking out the cup holder. Taking out the cup holder just gives you a lot more room to work with, and you can actually see where the cables are going through. So again, using the one-by-one method, bring up the harnesses and the switch. Now here is where you have to split up these cables. The switch wires, which will be the 2 red, is going to go behind the dash, whereas these 2 will go into the front of the cart. Let's run these first. So once you pull the harness up through the top of the dash, obviously it splits off. You're going to use the thicker part. There's a few notches that you would use to keep that in place. And the 2 harnesses will split off. And again, wrapped into the notches that are built into the RXV. And then you want to run it to one to the passenger side, and then the other to the driver's side. Now these notches are put there in place because obviously you want to make sure your harness is not going to come out, you're not going to have any loose cabling, and your lights get disconnected. Now as far as the hooking up the switch, this has to be ran through the back of the dash. Okay, now when you place your switch into the dash, obviously you have to drill. You want to use a 3/8 drill bit, approximately 1.5 inches left to right from the molding, and about 1 inch from the top of the molding into the dash. You want to mark it, you use a Sharpie, whatever you feel comfortable with, and then using that 3/8 drill bit, you want to go ahead and drill in the hole. The switch obviously just twists on, and you want to lock it into place. Once it's in place, you're going to take the harness that has the 2 red plug-ins for the switch and just push them into place. Now once you secure the front harness and the cables are where they need to be, you want to come back to the center section of where you originally ran the cable, make sure everything is nice and flat, and then zip tie it to the existing wiring that's already there. This will ensure that everything stays in place and that it's a good clean install. What I like to do is run at least 2 down here in the channel, and then another one right up at the top, underneath the where the cup holder usually is, just to tighten that down. And with these you can tighten them down because at this point you should have everything in its place. Then you snip off the extra zip tie. Then you can go back to where you ran the rear, and just to make sure that everything's in place there, tighten down the zip ties that you put there in the beginning. Now once everything's installed, any extra slack that you have within the harness, obviously you want to tuck it where you can, and then zip tie it to a point where there be another harness that's running through the cart, which is usually what I would recommend, just to make sure everything is out of the way and the installation is a clean one. Now that you have everything zip tied, all the cables where they need to be, organized and clean and neat, the last step is to connect this to the battery. 12 volt to your positive, and also your black cable to ground to the negative on the battery. Once you hook these up, your installation should be complete, and what you want to do is test your lights to make sure they work properly. Thank you, and have a great day.